If you ever wondered about what it would be like to get coached, I want to tell you that there's so many different types of coaching out there, and not only there are different types of coaching, but there are different coaches, and every coach will bring their own skills, abilities, philosophy, but most importantly, their own personal style to the conversation, to the coaching. So I want to tell you a little bit about what it's like to coach with me. So just want to start with a story. I remember when I was really first exposed to coaching, when I heard about coaching, I had no clue what it was. I remember being in the corporate bus going down to San Jose to eBay, where I was working at the time, and talking to a friend of mine who was an executive, and she was getting coached as a benefit that she got from the company. And as I was talking to her about how I'm feeling stuck, how I'm really kind of feeling not motivated, how I really want to make a change, but I don't know what the change might be, she was like, "You should talk to a coach. Talk to my coach." And she gave me her number. And I never ended up calling her because, to be honest, I just had no idea what I could expect. And I was just also imagining that it would be a huge investment, which it is. It is an investment. But honestly, knowing what I know now as being a coach, I really wish that I did it because I think it could have saved me a lot of years of trying to figure this out on my own. And I'm really glad that I did. But I really wish that I had a clear idea of what to expect, and that I gotten the help a lot sooner. So here's what it's like to work with me. So first off, so I focus on happiness and leadership coaching. And I'm going to focus today on the leadership part because that's honestly about kind of probably 3/4 of my work is around the space of leadership, to which I bring the wellness and the happiness factor. So, one thing to know is that when you go to coaching, the first thing, the place to start is preparation. So, to really make the best of your coaching is about thinking ahead of time and thinking about what is it that you really want to work on. And you can think of this in two different ways. Often people think about it as a goal, the place I want to go, which is great. So kind of having an aspiration, knowing where you want to go, that's great. I've seen though a big part of the issue is actually figuring that out. What is it that your goal is in itself a coaching exercise. And I've had people who just focused on that. Hey, I really don't know what change I want to make. I know I want to do something, and I know this is where I was back in the day. And really, I think a lot of us kind of get confused, and it makes sense that we would be confused because if we want to switch careers or if we want to make a big change, all we really know is that what we are part that we're in, the phase we're in, what situation we're in, is really not working for us. And so all we know sometimes is that whatever this isn't working. And so if you do know what you want to work on, then you kind of bring that to coaching and you say, well, this is kind of the outcome that I want to work on. Great. Other times, you might be a few steps behind this space and you might not even know where you want to go. And so in that case, then you bring sort of like the problem, so to speak. Like, this is the thing that I'm facing that I want to work through. So let me give you an example. So today, a leader who's a director level at a mid-sized company came to me and she said, I want to be able to take off some of the things on my plate. I want to be able to delegate more. I want more help. I feel like I'm doing way too much, and I'm looking at my notes and I'm feeling really kind of overwhelmed, and I'm really close to burnout. And I want to be able to ask my team to do more. But I feel guilty. Feel guilty to ask for more. This person in my team already said that she's overwhelmed. How do I ask her for more? I don't want to be insensitive, but I do feel that I need help. I need my team to pick up some of my work and take it off my plate. And so we start there. One of the things that is really important is to understand why is it important to work on this thing. So if we can define, in this case, the goal would be being able to ask for help and delegate without feeling guilty, okay? If that is our outcome, we want to see kind of what's in the way of that, because there's something that's stopping her. And if you're experiencing this, there's something that is stopping you from doing this thing, because otherwise you would have done it. So where are we now? So we're defining. So one of the first questions is, where do you want to go? What does the outcome look like? Then we look at, well, where are you today? Let's define what's the current situation, which is really easy usually to define. And then we're looking at how do we connect the dots? How do we get from here to there? Really simple, right? Just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. So then we kind of want to get to a few levels below, right? We want to get to the source. We want to get to the cause behind the symptoms. So the symptom here is that I really don't feel comfortable asking for help. We want to get to the cause. And so what's in the way of you being able to do that? So look at my notes. One of the things she says is, I don't want to feel, as we kind of went a few levels below, what this revealed is that she defines a role as a manager as someone who has to take on a bunch of different things, right? So if by removing some of those things, the reason she hasn't been delegating as much as she would like is because she is thinking that her team would question her role, her authority, right? Like, why aren't you doing your job? So she was imagining, right? So there's always an assumption behind this block that we have. And her assumption was that if she is delegating, she would make herself essentially not necessary. She wouldn't, people wouldn't need her. And so, you don't want to make your job redundant. What's interesting is that, when I asked her about what would be the benefit to be able to delegate, is when things began to crystallize. And not only did it become clear that, she would have more time to do things that she enjoys, but a lot of the benefits she listed were benefits for her team, for those team members who she was assuming that would criticize her for delegating more. And so when she was able to list those benefits, and as she observed that all of the majority of those benefits were really going to benefit her team, that those benefits would actually end up helping the team rather than hurt the team, is when she understood that not only that she was thinking about her role as someone who is supposed to always fix problems and take care of everything, but she also understood that really this had to do with the fear of not being understood, of being misunderstood, the fear of frustrating her team members. And so another thing, when it comes down to kind of processes, one thing that this process of inquiry revealed is that what she was looking for is not just to delegate a little bit more, but to have a better process in place, to improve ways of working, to have a better process for delegating, and as projects would come in, to have a system where it was really clear who does what now that her team has grew. So this revealed not only kind of fears and a different identity that she was holding on to that wasn't serving her, but an actual process change that was needed. So then, another thing that we found is that, look, and this is really common in coaching sessions, is once people kind of get a revelation, which literally happens, you have several ahas, you should have several ahas in a single coaching session, if your coach is great and is able to kind of confidently guide you through this process. one thing that I found that's quite common is once people kind of see a different way and they have this kind of revelation, sometimes that ends up kind of backfiring and being like, why haven't I done this before? I can't believe I thought about it this way. And so, one thing that we want to manage is as we learn a new skill, as we get better, as we deepen our awareness, and we see a different way, a better way, we want to make sure that we're not now criticizing the way that we've been doing things up until now. And so, I noticed this with her. And so then I asked, okay, what is a hypothesis that, because as we talked about this, she's like, oh, this makes me realize I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have done this. Like, there's so many things I did wrong. So I asked her, well, what's an assumption or a hypothesis that you think you have when you say these things? So one assumption that she had them embedded, that she uncovered as we were talking about this, was that she's done something wrong. So when we look at that and we say, I should have done this, this, and this, the assumption is I've done something wrong. But and so what I asked her was, how can you take that assumption, that hypothesis, and turn it into a hypothesis that is empowering? Because this hypothesis that she was currently using was disempowering. It was really making her feel guilty and shame. She was feeling shame around having made these mistakes. And so then the hypothesis that she came up with is, I continuously learn. Hallelujah. Yes, you are. We all are continuously learning. So you can see how that is really replacing. This reframe is super empowering, because you can see how you can look at all the things that you've done last year and say, I should have done this, this, and this now that I know a better way. And changing that with, I'm continuously learning, right? So I can now see how things work. I can now see that things are a lot more complex than I was assuming before, and how much work it takes to get from here to there. So we have to have patience for our growth. And so the last thing that happens in a coaching session is that we are, as we're identifying these ahas and we begin to reframe things, and we are learning that there's a different way that we can think and really look at a situation and look at in this case, look at the past, and being able to say, wow, look how much I've grown. Let's jot down some insights that I have gathered by looking at this, rather than saying, oh my gosh, I should have done that. It might seem like a small change, but energetically and in the way we feel and in the way that we really embody this work, it's a fundamental change, because it begins to take away the shame factor, and instead it replaces it with the growth mindset and a different outlook on where do I go from here? And so this also has an impact on how do I go from here. So the session always ends with, okay, what's a key insight that you want to take action on, and what are the specific actions? We take this insight into action. And so one of the actions that she says she wanted to take is to be more open in these meetings, would kind of like pull the curtain a little bit and be a little bit more transparent, more honest about what's really happening behind the scenes, so people have a sense of how complex, right, these steps are. And so one thing to be mindful of that I also want to share is that as you design sort of a new solution, a new strategy going forward, one thing that can happen is you can kind of freeze when you look at like this big change that you really want to make. And so an important thing is to try to be realistic. And so we don't want to go from 0% to 100%. What we want to do is we want to make incremental, consistent changes, right? So we can really change our habits to support this new behavior that we want to have and this new mindset. And so what I asked her to do is to think about a 5% incremental change. And that 5%, so then we kind of think about, okay, well, what does that 5% look like, growth, change in that direction? And, the next session And maybe the next day, in between sessions, kind of challenge. My advice is to challenge yourself to consistently increase that 5%, the 1% change in the direction you want to go, rather than looking at this big change and be like, there's no way I can do this. Like, this sounds great. I'm sure this would work, but I just can't do it. So we don't want to then step into the tendency and really kind of lose momentum by trying to bite more than we can chew. We really want to make small incremental changes that compound over time and be consistent in changing those habits, so that we continue this progress. Because you know what, guys? We need patience. Growth takes patience. Growth takes time. Okay, I hope this is useful. I hope this gave you a sense of what coaching is like. And hit me up with any questions. Good to see you.